In this lesson, we're going to continue to explain how South Carolinians use their natural, human, and political resources to gain economic prosperity, including settlement by and trade with the people of Barbados, rice and indigo planting, and the practice of mercantilism. Today, the lesson is going to be mainly about the practice of mercantilism. In the last lesson, we learned about some of South Carolina's abundant resources, which included deer, pine forests, fertile land, the mild climate, and the long growing season. We also learned how the geographic conditions in Charleston were suitable for rice planting, and the Charleston port and navigable waterways along the coast made shipping goods into the interior and market possible. There's the navigable waterways in Charlestown port. We also learned that the fur trade ended with the natives when South Carolina settlers forced the natives into slavery. We also learned about how South Carolinians sold cattle and slaves to the people of Barbados and naval stores to Great Britain as part of their trade. The role of rice in South Carolina cannot be understated because rice would become the dominant cash crop, earning the nickname Carolina Gold because it brought long-term prosperity to the Carolinas. Eliza Lucas Pinckney was an enterprising young lady who figured out how to grow a highly valued strain of indigo that would make her plantation successful. The success of these cash crops caused the slave trade to grow in the Carolinas and an increase in the number of slaves. Today's lesson is mainly about mercantilism. Now, I would like you to think about what you know about mercantilism. And I'll give you a hint. It has to do with trade, with the exporting and importing of things. Under mercantilism, you should know from last year that you're supposed to do one more than the other. And also, the goal of mother countries is to gain something in mercantilism. Hopefully your brain has thought that, I remember mercantilism. You export more than you import. You export more goods than you import in mercantilism. And the goal of this is to increase your gold and silver. So mercantilism, the economic system of this age of colonization, the goal was to increase gold and silver by exporting more than you import or selling more than you buy. And as a result of mercantilism, the mother country becomes wealthy and powerful. Now, the main three mother countries of the age of colonization were Spain, France, and of course England or Britain. Now, under mercantilism, these three main mother countries wanted to not sell to each other, with the exception of they will sell something to, England will sell something to France, but they only want one thing if they do sell it. Keep in mind, what do they want the most of? Yes, they want gold. So England will sell something to France if they can get gold in return. Likewise, Spain will trade something with Britain if Britain's going to pay them gold for it. Now, the goal of this is so gold will be able to buy ships and pay soldiers, so the country with the most gold will be the most wealthy and powerful. Now, the goal of mercantilism, of course, is to increase your supplies of gold and silver. Now, the way that England went about this was through the following scenarios. Here's a well-known cartoon of mercantilism. England, as well as all these other mother countries, but we're going to put ourselves in Mother England's shoes. They did not want anything from trading with other mother countries. For example, Spain, France, and even like the Netherlands. Instead, all the basic things that they need, foodstuffs, raw materials, etc., they want to get it from their colonies. So the colonies are like the grocery stores of the mother countries. They don't want to go and get anything that they can get from their colonies from another mother country. This puts them in a great position to trade, especially if they get something that other mother countries might want. Now, what England has is they have something that all the other countries want so bad they're willing to pay gold for it. And what they have is they have what Eliza Lucas Pinckney just grew. They are going to be the only one that has this new product, indigo. Now, no one has this indigo that Eliza Lucas Pinckney has started to grow because it is so good, it is the best. Other countries are willing to pay gold for it. So they have to come, England comes up with a master plan to keep indigo within its control and make sure that it has a healthy supply of it, but also that it can be the only supplier of the world. So first, it has to get people to grow it. What do? They pay these extra payments. They pay planters in the colonies who grow it extra. What are these extra payments called? Yes, they are called subsidies or bounties. So this is part one of the master plan to obtain gold for indigo, what a crop they have a monopoly on. But next, they have to make sure that they're the only supplier of it, because then they can charge pretty much what they want for it. So what they do is they require that the colonies ship all of the indigo directly to England. So even though you grow indigo, you can only sell it to one person, and that one person, that one is England. You cannot grow a bunch of indigo and sell it to France if you're in the Carolinas, because that's a violation of the law. Now, what the law was called the enumerated list. The enumerated list was like a law that Britain had, which required the colonies to send everything on the enumerated list directly to Britain. So it's called the enumerated list because if it was an item on there, every number of these items or products must be shipped directly to England. Now, what items were on the enumerated list? Well, one, definitely, because England controlled the only supply of it in the world, was indigo. Now, to some degree, rice was also on there. In fact, in some degree, rice was another part of their plan where they wanted all rice shipped to them. Now, the whole reason, they want to be the only supplier to the world of these items, because the world then will be willing to pay gold for them. So once again, the enumerated list were items that can only be sold to England. If it's on the enumerated list and you try to sell it to France, Spain, the Netherlands, you are breaking the law and will be put in jail. So, to continue the lesson, mercantilism lessened the mother country's dependence on foreign trade and improved the balance of trade, where exports were over imports. There were more exports than imports. The British, though, according to the scenario that was just presented, they encouraged the development of new products, like the indigo that Eliza Lucas Pinckney grew, by offering subsidies or bonuses to the planters who grew it. They ensured that it was sent to them and only sold to them so they could control the worldwide supply by placing it what's all called the enumerated list. Now, one effect of this whole fighting for all the gold in the world, or limiting trade to within the colonies, except if you're willing to trade gold, would be that mercantilism would lead to a series of wars between the nations of France, Spain, and England. So mercantilism and not really trading free would lead to a series of wars between nations. Now, there was one other piece, and the British enforced the enumerated list with indigo, of course, because it was far too profitable to not. However, they were lax or not real strict with rice. Now, the point of not enforcing the enumerated list with rice was so the colonies could grow. So, even though rice was on the enumerated list, rice planters, the British authorities looked the other way with the trade of rice. So, even though rice was on the enumerated list, you were kind of unofficially allowed to trade it with other countries. This was intentional upon the British part. The reason that they allowed the countries to trade rice with other countries was, one, because the British never really had the only supply of rice in the world, so it wasn't as valuable as indigo was to them. Spain could get rice from other countries, as could France, as could the Netherlands. But it was also to help the colonies grow and help their economies grow. This policy of being lax or not real strict with rice only was called the policy of salutary neglect or neglect. Salutary neglect was this policy of being lax on mercantilistic laws so the colonies themselves could grow. So, even though rice was on the enumerated list, along with indigo, the British did not enforce the policy with rice. This was known as salutary neglect. Salutary means beneficial neglect. This was the policy of being lax about enforcing mercantilistic laws. So, in this lesson, we've learned about the economy of the Carolinas. One of the most substantial things we learned about was the importance of rice in the Carolina economy. Rice, of course, came from slaves. The British never knew how to grow rice. It was their own African slaves that taught them how. Rice would become so valuable in the Carolinas, it was known as Carolina gold. However, indigo would also play a key part in the economy of Carolina because it enabled Britain to control the worldwide supply of it, and Britain could trade it for gold and increase their supplies of gold and silver, because other countries were willing to pay gold and silver for it. This completes the lesson for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you did well.